Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, there are so many big announcements this year around Google's future plans to slowly end the use of third-party cookies, which is intended to look like a privacy-friendly decision. If it is or not, well, that is debatable. And Apple are also going privacy first and getting email marketers to worry about the road ahead. And there's also a lot of talk about creating a more transparent supply chain. What should industry leaders be doing to get to that ideal destination? It's just one of the very big questions that people are exploring right now. Along with, what are the next steps for the industry, marketers, advertisers and publishers? And these are a selection of the talking points I wanted to explore on the podcast today. So I've invited Anudit Vikram from MediaMath onto the podcast to dig deeper onto that subject. And MediaMath is the acclaimed independent advertising technology company, which is on a mission to build a new accountable and addressable supply chain for the industry. So in a nutshell, they're perfectly positioned to comment on all this and much more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York, where today's guest is waiting to speak with us. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Thank you, Neil, and thank you for having me on the show. Really appreciate that. Well, I am the Chief Product Officer here at MediaMath. And so what I do is essentially work with my product and engineering teams and spend actually a bunch of time with the industry folks working on the things that we do to make digital programmatic advertising a little bit more interesting for our customers, for our clients, and for the industry on the whole. On a day-to-day basis, it's about working with our clients as well as our teams on identifying what are the bigger problems to solve for the industry and then helping create technological solutions to solve for them.
And I should also highlight for people listening and hearing about you for the first time that you are a business and technology leader with over 20 years of experience in advertising and marketing technology. But before we dive a little bit deeper into that, I'd love to find out a little bit more about your origin story and where your passion for technology came from, what put you on this path today. Can you remember where it all began?
Yes, and it is, I don't know whether you would call it interesting or not, but it is interesting in some ways. As I was growing up, I was very, very certain that I was going to become a doctor. And then I ended up having a physics teacher who somehow, she was so good that I just realized that I had to be more on the mechanical physics side of things and not necessarily be in medicine. Which is the origin of me actually choosing to go towards engineering rather than medicine. And having become an engineer, I was fortunate enough to work with Microsoft, which kind of got me very much hooked into this concept of software as a service, software development, application development, and so on. And then I landed up working with Fox News, 21st Century, and we were at that time building out the Fox News website. And I was enamored by the fact that there was this company called DoubleClick that would allow us to actually monetize websites, make money on the fact that people are just viewing content on your pages. And that whole thing about digital advertising came through from there. And then I ended up working at Right Media, which was one of the first companies building out programmatic. We built the first ad exchange, and we were responsible for what eventually became called as real-time bidding, or RTB. That's all the rage for quite a while, and the fundamentals of programmatic started from there. I was completely hooked by that time, and here I am. Still, 15 years later, 17 years. I don't even remember how far back it was. Completely in the middle of everything programmatic, everything digital, and advertising now is digital. So I'm really, really fortunate to be here at this time.
Yeah, and your passion for the subject really shines through, and the path, of course, that you took led you to MediaMath, and we will have people listening hearing about MediaMath for the very first time. So for those, can you just expand a little bit on the kind of problems that you're solving here in 2021 with your tech, and what makes you different from other solutions out there?
Absolutely. For those who don't know who we are, but know about the programmatic industry, we are a DSP. And by the way, I have to say that we in this industry love using 3-letter acronyms, and I might just land up throwing a few here and there. So do stop me and ask me to elaborate if you want to. But yes, we are a DSP, which is a demand side platform. And what we essentially do is we help brands and agencies in running their programmatic campaigns or their digital advertising campaigns as effectively as they can. So if you think about the problem that we are solving, a brand marketer, either working directly or via their agency. So let's use an example, somebody like an IBM or a P&G or State Farm or any of those, they want to be able to present their messages to the world so that they can then have customers come and buy their products, whether it is, computers or cloud services for IBM or insurance for State Farm or, toilet paper or razors for P&G. And in order to send these messages, they want to make sure that they are being effective in the amount of money that they spend versus the efficacy of the actual message itself. And that's where advertising comes into play, and we focus on the digital aspects, which nowadays is pretty much everything. So whether you are seeing that message from that brand or through their agency on a website or inside an app on your phone or in a tablet, or you're looking at it on one of the billboards, digital billboards that are by the roadside as you're driving or at an airport, or you're seeing it inside the what we call today as connected TV or over-the-top television modes. Any of these channels where you might be viewing a brand's message is a place where we help the brand run their message in a way that can be most effective for them.
Love that. And it's such an interesting space right now. And there's a lot of news doing the rounds about Google promising to slowly end the use of third-party cookies. I think it has been delayed till 2023, and it is intended to look like a privacy-friendly decision. But arguably, it could also strengthen the impact of its own first-party trackers. So with all this going on, I'm curious, how do you see the consumer privacy argument evolving over the next few years?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, we only have 22 minutes left. This is a 22-hour question as far as I'm concerned, but let me take a shot at, giving a little synopsis there. So we built this industry, not on rock and roll, but on the third-party cookie, right? We built it on third-party cookie because that was a very easy way and a very, I would say, a right way for us to be able to transfer information across the internet, based on the fact that the internet at its very core is an asynchronous entity. We make connections, the connections drop, and then they get created again. And the third-party cookie was there for allowing us to address issues of data transfer or data sharing, if you will, across different parties on the internet. Now, as it happens, when you create technology, there are always ways for using the technology that are ideal and perfect, and then there are ways that are not so ideal and not so perfect. And unfortunately, those not so ideal and not so perfect ways land up getting used pretty often. And that's what happened with the third-party cookie, where now you were at a point where data was being shared without necessarily the owner of the data, the user on whom the data was created or based on whom the data was created, really knowing how exactly it was being created or how it was being shared and so on. And therefore, rightfully so, the privacy regulators and legislators came into play, and they said the user has a right to understand what is happening with their data. Now, there are two ways of creating data. There is this third-party cookie, which was a disconnected way, if you will. Me as a user did not know what third-party cookie was actually collecting my information and sharing it. And then there is the first-party data itself, which is me as a user. I'm actively contributing my data by the fact that I have a relationship with who I am sharing my data. And so we are at a point now where, regulation, rightfully so, is saying that the third-party cookie is not necessarily the best way to share data because of privacy concerns. And Google, which plays a very, very big role in our ecosystem, as all of us understand, is saying, well, we have to follow what the regulators are saying, and therefore we will discontinue the use of the third-party cookie. Now, it's a little self-serving, I must say, because Google obviously has their own other solutions that they're bringing into play that actually work really well for them, as was made obvious by the fact that the industry on the whole and the regulators themselves did not fully agree to the way Google was going about deprecating the third-party cookie and as a result, Google was forced to, in some ways, stay the deprecation by giving us another 12 months or so, or almost 18 months, actually. We as MediaMath are working through all of this for certain. We have a very, very strong and forward-thinking identity strategy, which allows all of our brands, our clients, our agencies, and so on, to be able to use first-party data natively on our platform. We understand that the third-party cookie is going to move, is going to be deprecated someday, and we are completely in line with the way the regulators are looking at privacy. And we believe that there are better solutions that we can build which account for privacy and at the same time allow our brands and customers and to get the value that they want to be able to get through their advertising plans, if you will. What we have done is built this first-party based identity strategy, which allows us to ensure that we can run campaigns as effectively as our brands need us to. And MediaMath and a bunch of us in the industry strongly believe that the quality of first-party data actually makes up for the fact that even with the third-party cookie going away, you will actually get to better outcomes with being able to use first-party data at scale on our platform. I know that was a very long-winded answer. It's actually a complicated question in some ways, but I hope that got to the point that I was trying to make about, the cookie might go away, but first-party ID is here to stay. And as long as it does, we have solutions that we can allow our brands to actually use to still run marketing and digital advertising as they're used to.
No, that was a fantastic answer. It is an incredibly complex topic. And like you said, we could have dedicated an entire episode to that one question alone, really. And there's also a lot of talk about creating a more transparent supply chain. So what should industry leaders be doing to get to that ideal destination?
That's great. Yes. I mean, if you have been following the news in the recent past about, I would say a year or so, and maybe a little longer than that as well, there's been a lot of brouhaha about the fact that the industry, by the way it was constructed, and I would say in some ways through no fault of anybody's, but through a fault of everybody's, has become an opaque supply chain, if you will, because there are so many hops between when an advertiser decides to show their message to a user versus that actual message landing up on a web page or an app or on a billboard or anything. And this opacity in the supply chain actually has advertisers questioning whether their brand dollars or, their marketing dollars are being truly effectively applied, or are they paying what we call as the digital advertising tax, on every little hop, to a point where it's actually becoming detrimental to them. And so MediaMath, through our source philosophy and the work that we have done around technologically enabling source, are front and center in creating this, what we call as a transparency in the supply chain. And we do that via three means. We work on what we call as addressability, which means that we say that we will provide you technological solutions that allow you as a buyer of media to be comfortable and confident in the fact that whatever message you are showing is actually being shown to a user who you intend to show the message to. And it's not being shown to a bot or to some other, fraudulent site on the other side. And this addressability extends into, the first party domain so that it's prepared for the fact or ready for the fact when the third party cookie is no longer available. We then also talk about this pillar that we call as accountability, which means that, which talks about the fact that the buy side and the sell side are accountable to each other, and therefore any fee that is being charged or any performance measure that is being actually seen should be transparently shared between the buy side and the sell side. And therefore, we provide you with technological means to actually share this information either on the bid stream or through reporting to give you the comfort in the fact that both you on the sell side and you on the buy side are aware of what is happening and therefore accountable to each other. And then the third pillar is what we call as alignment, wherein the buy side and the sell side are aligned to the outcomes that they want to drive. And we create, again, technological solutions that allow you to do things like ensuring that you're sharing the right kind of information to be able to create the right kind of, I would say, bid responses, and therefore maximize the efficacy of your advertising on the buy side, and maximize the ROI that you are generating on your published assets as the sell side. So these three pillars of addressability, accountability, and alignment, via the technological solutions that we build to support them, allow us to create a transparent supply chain, giving both the buyer and the seller confidence in the fact that their marketing dollars on the buy side are being used effectively, and to the sell side that the return that they're getting on their publishing investments are actually right.
And it really feels like we're all almost navigating uncharted digital waters at the moment and trying to work out what's coming next and how we're going to navigate 2022. So what are the next steps for the industry, marketers, advertisers, and publishers? Is there any insights you can share around there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know that the third-party cookie will eventually go away. And actually, in some ways, given the fact that we now have 12 to 18 extra months, the work that we had started last year with scaling out these first-party IDs and being able to test how those first-party IDs work is stuff that we should actually double down on right now. We have another, a few extra months to actually test this out fully, and from a first-party identity perspective, to scale it out fully. And we at MediaMath are working very, very closely with our customers to ensure that we do that. That's the one thing. On the second side, we know that with the way privacy and the other changes are coming by, and the changes in identity, as we just spoke about, there are going to be changes in the way we do measurement, attribution, reporting, which obviously are very, very critical to both the buyer and the seller to ensure that you still maintain your visibility into what is working versus what is not, so that you can manage your brand dollars, effectively. And so a lot of work is happening around what the new measurement is going to look like. And that's, again, something that we are working on our platform itself to provide solutions for our customers, and then working very closely with our customers to ensure that what they get is what they want. And then last but not the least, we are seeing the emergence of new channels. Everybody talks about how much of media budget is actually shifting to CTV. We certainly see a lot of advancements happening in the audio space as well as digital out of home. And we at MediaMath, again, are building, have built, and are continuing to build, solutions to support the transaction of media on all of these channels. And we are working, again, with the industry, with our partners, as well as our clients, to ensure that we are able to provide these solutions, whether it is measurement solutions across these different channels, or targeting, or optimization, and so on. So that, again, the industry on the whole, the buy side, the sell side, and every partner that we work with is able to maximize what they want to, or what they are able to bring to the table and run business most effectively.
And another topic we're hearing more and more is transparency, and the need for greater transparency. So I'm curious, do you think we'll see greater transparency around our data is used? Because there's a lot of conversations around it, but it seems we've been talking about it for a long time. But do you think we'll see that?
So I would say, based on the work that we have done and how we see people reacting to it, yes, absolutely. I think there is a lot more transparency today in the ecosystem than there was before. And we are very active with industry bodies in conjunction with our clients and partners to ensure that we can do what is necessary to take this, to fly the transparency flag, if you will, forward. Whether it is working with brand safety vendors, with measurement vendors, with creative management vendors. And then certainly, the effort that the brands and agencies are themselves putting to ensure that platforms that they work with provide them the level of transparency that they need. I think the user themselves, you and I and everybody, listening to this as a user themselves, personally have the right to expect that transparency, whether it is transparency in how their data is being collected and how it is being used. And then every buyer and the seller in the space has the right for that transparency as well, to ensure that what they are doing is right and is effective.
A quick timeout from the interview to mention HireAct. the sponsors of the Tech Talks Daily podcast this month. So recruiters, are you or your business spending too long in your email and waiting for responses? Did you know that with HireAct, you can skip the headache of traditional hiring? You can view resumes, exchange contact info and interview candidates in seconds. You can also get curated candidate recommendations that fit your job requirements. You can chat directly with your ideal candidates, accelerate your hiring process 10 times faster than those painful traditional ways. And best of all, it's a totally free download from the Apple and Google Play Store. So download HireAct from the Apple or Google Play Store, give it a try, and let me know what you think. But now, back to today's interview. Just bringing it back to your own story for a moment. Prior to MediaMath, you've served at leadership positions at Dun & Bradstreet, Merkle, Yahoo, Microsoft, and so many other big organizations. But I'm curious, for all those people listening at the very beginning of their career or new startup founder maybe, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your tech career that you would pass down to anybody listening?
That's nice. Nice of you to ask. I mean, I wish I was somebody who actually had the right to be looked up to. But that being said, I have been very, very fortunate with the kind of roles that I have held in the type of companies I have worked in. I would say, number one, find something that you are passionate about. The amount of time that we spend working is unfairly balanced as against the amount of time that we just spend, living a life outside of work. And therefore, the one thing that I wish everybody is able to do is in their young ages, be able to try a few things so that you can find that thing that truly excites you, to come into work every day. And once you find that, stick with it. The grass always feels greener on the other side, and you would think you want to try something different. No harm trying it, but if you found something that you're truly passionate about, there's nothing better than that. Second, being successful at work, being happy at work. And I use the word happy very often because I think being happy is very, very critical to being successful, because if you're unhappy, you will never be able to give your all to something. But being successful and happy has a lot to do with the people that you work with and the type of company you are at, and less to do with exactly what you are doing. So when you find the right set of people, when you find something that you're passionate about, just make sure that you make the most of it. And third, but actually the most important, live your life with integrity. There is nothing more important than being honest about who you are and what you bring to the table, and coming with integrity to what you do, whether it is what you do with integrity with yourself, on being true to yourself, with your peers, with your managers, with your customers, with your partners, with whoever else it is. If you act with integrity, are working on something that you're passionate about, and with a team that you love coming to work with every day, life's amazing.
Wow, that is some inspirational advice right there, man. And I completely echo all the sentiments behind it. And looking forward to the future, what's next for you? And indeed, MediaMath, is there anything that particularly excites you about the data-centric product innovation and design, and how things are continuously evolving? Or maybe I should just say, what makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning?
Well, I don't know if it comes across in my in the tone of my voice, but yes, I am very, very excited about everything that we are doing right now. And this industry is about 16, 17 years old, if you will, in the form that it exists right now. And when you think about it, we've been here for a while, but we've actually barely been here for a while. When you compare us to the automotive industry or the travel industry or the hospitality industry, I mean, places that are so much more mature. We are actually maturing now, and we are seeing the changes come about because of now we have regulations. Like we are big boys. We are big people. We are no longer the one that can just go about doing whatever the hell we want. So there is so much change coming about. There is technology is changing every day that allows us to use data in different ways, allows us to put data to different use cases, allows us to change the way we think about the world around us. And we all have the opportunity of actually building something new, something big, something that can change the way we go about doing our daily lives. And I am super excited about the fact that we are here now, because the future is just, it's in front of us. It's in our hands to do so many things that we know we can, because our world allows us to.
And your passion for the industry really shines through in our conversation today. And we kind of come full circle now. We began talking about your origin story and where it all began. But now I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you and ask you, what was the soundtrack to your story and your career in tech? Is there one song that keeps coming back and accompany you throughout your career, or just helps you get your head in the zone before a big meeting? And you have already mentioned We Built This City by Starship. I'm not sure if it's going to be that one or not, but is there a song and story you can share with us?
Yeah, that certainly is one, which plays in the background. I have to be honest about saying that some of the songs that play in my mind are actually old Indian Bollywood, so they may not resonate very well with a large section of the folks listening here. But I'll say this: when it comes to English music, as crazy as it sounds, but when you read the words, you will understand it. The song that I identify with is by Chris Rea called "Road to Hell."
Yeah,
and I do not by any way mean to say that we're on a road to hell, but there is something about that song that truly resonates. And then, of course, We Build This City. We are building this city. That's my song.
Love it. Absolutely love that. And for anyone listening that wants to find out more information about MediaMath, and if they've got any questions they want to ask your team, what's the best starting point?
Well, we can certainly reach out to MediaMath. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter, and then of course there is info@mediamath.com. I am personally there on @Anudit on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Happy to engage with anybody. I love talking about this industry. I love meeting new people. I love talking about MediaMath. I'm very, very excited about the solutions that we are building and the problems we are solving, for our customers. So looking forward to continuing the dialogue for sure.
Well, I'll add all the links to the show notes so people can find you nice and easily, and find MediaMath online as well. But so much I've loved about our conversation today about continuing the momentum of creating a more transparent supply chain, and our industry leaders must continue to work around the activation of first-party identity options and creating cohort-based solutions. But more than anything, it's your incredibly humbling story there, and your advice about finding your passion and building your future around that, doing it with integrity, and as I just said, so humble about your success as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and share your story with me today.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you get to your pub fast enough now.
Wow, so many great takeaways there. And before today's guest came on the show, I read how he said recently that there is no question that first-party data performs better and that the quality of third-party data is questionable. But that it's not the only factor in driving transparency. Transparency to the actual user, what we call addressability, is directly affected too. So to continue the momentum of creating a more transparent supply chain, industry leaders must continue to work around the activation of first-party identity options and creating cohort-based solutions. So for next steps, the big takeaway is industry, marketers, advertisers, publishers and the like should use this time to start working with first-party identity solutions and perfect the stack that they're going to use, while still being able to leverage the scale provided by third-party cookies right now. So wise words indeed. But for anyone working in this industry, I'd love to hear your thoughts, experiences, insights, counter opinions, questions, whatever it may be. Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Let me know your thoughts. If you want to come on the podcast, there's a seat next to me here if you'd like to join me. But more than anything, just a big thank you to each and every one of you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.